Today we're focusing on endangered species and the negative impact that losing these species can have on both humans and the environment. My special guest today is someone who's very knowledgeable of this entire situation, especially how it impacts chimpanzees. Dr. Jane Goodall, a native of England, spent many years studying the chimpanzee of Gombe in Tanzania. Dr. Goodall in 1977 founded the Jane Goodall Institute for Research, Education, and Conservation. You think the chimpanzee population has gone from 1 million down to 300,000, which is really a huge drop, 66% almost. And if it continues at that rate, it will go, eventually they could be wiped out.
I don't think it is yet. We have many partners on the ground in the Congo Basin, including UNEP, and you know, this bushmeat trade is a huge business. And of course the timber concessions that are being sold today, many going to the Chinese to help support their development. And an awful lot of money is involved in these, both of these trades, the logging, and then there's the mining of coltan, which is destroying the habitat and causing the deaths of hundreds of animals in eastern Congo. And you know, the more I was traveling in Africa to talk about chimpanzees and rainforests and protecting them, the more I realized that so many of Africa's problems can be directly related to the unsustainable lifestyles of the elite around the world and the developed world, and the average American, the average European, and our unsustainable lifestyles. So that on the one hand you've got crippling poverty, and then on the other hand you have people who are taking so much more than our fair share of the non-renewable natural resources.
You've hit upon, I think, one of the major problems in that we have these non-renewable sources of energy that we're using, for example, oil, coal. We also have this situation, though, where we have 6.5 billion people on the face of the earth. Now, these people are raising their standards. They're using more energy. They're using more coal. They're using more oil. And the United Nations predicts that by 2050, we'll have 9 billion people. That's a third more, basically, than what we have right now. How do you see this as far as our non-renewable sources of energy? What should we be doing?
Well, I mean, if we use up all the resources we have, that's the end of the human race. And long before then, we'll have created a planet that's virtually uninhabitable. And as far as, you know, the loss of species, we are in the middle of the 6th great extinction. We're losing small, seemingly insignificant species of animal and plant every day, particularly in the rainforest. And we don't know yet, we don't know enough. Take out one little species, that may affect another, which may affect a third, and you can end up with a complete collapse of that ecosystem. We don't know what we're doing. And if we can't get a handle on population growth, then I think in the long run we're doomed. So, you know, to me we have these three seemingly insoluble problems: the human population growth, the crippling poverty of more people living than the land can support, and the unsustainable lifestyles of those who take resources from places they've exhausted theirs perhaps, so they take them from somewhere else. And we have to learn to do with less. We have to try and find energy sources like solar, like wind, like the currents, which all those technologies theoretically are possible. Create methane gas out of our waste that we use rather than sending it up into the ether to be one of the greenhouse gases, which is leading to climate change, which, if it continues unabated, I mean, I was just in Greenland and I stood there and I saw these huge slabs of ice fall off at a time of year when they shouldn't be falling. And the Inuits were weeping because their land was being destroyed. If all that ice melted, and pray God it won't, but if it did up in the Arctic, the sea levels would rise by 7 meters around the world. Well, we know what would happen if, I mean, we cannot live. So we've got to, I mean, I came away with the message, each one of us must do everything we can to reduce our own CO2 emissions, methane gas, which comes from intensive farming of animals, and everything is so interrelated.
You're right, the countries of the world, the governments, the businesses, the people, everyone has a stake in this, and as you mentioned, if the oceans rose 21 meters, Florida would be just a reef. There would be no Florida because the average height's about, I think it's about 7 feet above sea level. So, and it's not just Florida, but islands in the Pacific and other places.
Some have already been evacuated.
That's right.
it. And Bangladesh will soon virtually be gone. And all the coastal areas, parts of England, are washing away already. And, you know, I was really thrilled when the UN issued an appeal to the people to eat less meat, because people don't realize that the methane emissions of intensively farmed animals is a greater contributor to greenhouse gases than all the cars of the planet. I didn't know that, but it happens to be true. So, you know, how do we do this? I mean, what gets me is that we're bringing little children into this world. Many of them are in environments where the food they eat, the air they breathe, and the water they drink is actually making them sick. We're pouring chemical pesticides and fertilizers and, you know, emissions from industry and from households and golf courses. We're poisoning the planet for the future. And this is why I'm devoting so much of my time to working with young people. And it was the work with the young people, our Roots and Shoots groups, that are now in 111 countries with about 10,000 active groups. It was that work that caused Kofi Annan to ask me to be a messenger of peace. Because we are about trying to break down the barriers we build between not only people of different cultures and religions and nations, but between us and the natural world.
And people, our viewers, can learn more about Roots and Shoots if they go to www.janegoodall.org and learn more about the Jane Goodall Institute and many of these issues that we're talking about today. And they are so very important. You mentioned partners, and you can do so much. Each individual group can do so much.
We work with UNHCR, with the refugees.
The High Commission for Refugees.
Yes. We work in the Congo Basin, not only with the other NGOs on the ground and World Bank and USAID, United States Overseas Aid, but also with the logging companies to try and reduce the impact that they're making on the forest. And, you know, I spend a lot of time talking in China, talking about the environmental problems they face, and talking to the young people about ways in which some of these can be solved. India, another country where, you know, there's massive rapid development. So Roots and Shoots is growing there. It's all over mainland China. It's growing in Australia. It's in every US state. And it's linking young people around the world so that they can share not only the problems but the solutions. And they're forming a family. Do you remember the book, The Family of Man, that came out, I think, after World War I or World War II? Yes. It was one of the first books where it showed that people are people, and we're all sharing the same heart and the same aspirations, whatever the color of our skin or the culture in which we live. It had small black and white pictures. That made a huge impact on me, and I see our Roots and Shoots program as creating another family of man.
Well, we're down to our last few seconds, but let me ask you, Dr. Goodall, if you had one wish, what is your one wish for humankind? What should we be thinking about or doing?
Well, I suppose it's almost impossible, but if we could just find a way to control the growth of our numbers so that we can all live in harmony, then I think we would see less war, we would see much more love around the planet, and our young people could grow up without fear.
And this is so extremely important, and the work that you're doing is very, very important, and you have reached people not just in the United States, but in all parts of the world, and people are looking at you and looking at the tremendous work you're doing, and you're really raising our consciousness level, and this is a great opportunity for us to make a contribution. Well, Dr. Jane Goodall, I want to thank you so very much for a very interesting and a very informative program.
Thank you.